Some of us push people away and say, I got it to people in our lives, and people think, oh, well, he or she has it, so I don't need to help them, or they never need anything. Then you end up being the strong one and the resentful one, right? So we have to, yes, be aware of just what you're pushing away when you're pushing away.
Today's guest is someone whose work sits right at the intersection of two things I care deeply about: human potential and the future of work. Elayne Fluker spent 25 years in media at Essence, Martha Stewart Living, and People magazine before turning her attention to executive coaching. Today, she's the founder of the AI Ready Leader, built on a premise I love. The leaders who thrive with AI aren't the ones who master the tech fastest. They're the ones who never lose sight of the people around it. She's a LinkedIn top voice with over 78,000 followers. She's trained more than 100,000 leaders through her courses and workshops, and she's the author of Get Over, I Got It. And this conversation feels a little full circle for me because back when I was just starting my business, Elayne had me on Supportive Sexy as a guest. And now, 10 years later, into the building of Denise Harris leadership, she's sitting across from me, and I get to be the one asking the questions. Elayne, welcome to Promoted.
Thank you so much for having me, Denise. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. It really
10
is.
years. I can't believe that it was 10 years.
It's crazy, right?
Crazy. That's awesome.
Well, listen, let's go ahead and jump in because I have so many things I want to ask you about, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time. Now, you've talked about how high achieving women resist asking for support, and I know that to be true. What I'm curious about is how often is that same exact instinct the same thing that actually holds them back from getting to the next level?
Yes, I think I always like to give us grace, if you will, about why some of us might not ask for support, whether it's, in our culture, in our specific family, or just in my case, for example, I say I grew up in a household where my parents took in all of my family for different reasons. Someone was going through a hard time or abuse or addiction or just whatever it is. My house in Long Island, in Lakeview, where we both grew up, was the house where a lot of family and friends would come to or stay with us and those kind of things. Now, how I associated this as a child, not as a fully grown adult, as a child was when you get support, it's usually because something bad is happening or you're in some state of despair or, so all these different things shape our perception, whether true or not. So this isn't about a truth conversation, it's about perception. And then, let's be honest, there is a thing, especially as women executives, there are just things in society that might make us more nervous about admitting that we don't know something or being seen as incompetent or as though we don't know how to do our jobs or whatever those things are. So always position it that way so that people understand, this isn't necessarily a flaw or something that you've even done wrong. There might be reasons that you feel that way or that you behave in that way. And then to your question, but how are those things, now that you know that, how are those things holding you back at work, even in your life? Some of us push people away and say, I got it to people in our lives, and people think, oh, well, he or she has it, so I don't need to help them, or they never need anything. Then you end up being the strong one and the resentful one, right? So we have to, yes, be aware of just what you're pushing away when you're pushing away. Knowing the why is, important. It shouldn't stop you from making the shift. You don't have to know the why. For me, I literally did some work and traced back to where might this have come from, because I didn't realize it was a thing until, honestly, a therapist and going to some leadership development courses pointed it out to me. Wow, I really have a problem asking for support or accepting support, and it holds you back from moving forward in things you want to do in your life. Even if you've gone to a certain point or made it to a certain point, think of how much better it would be if you had support around you.
Yeah, but I do think you're right about this idea of asking for help sometimes makes us look weak or like we don't have all the answers. And I think the higher you go in your career, it feels as if you're supposed to do it all alone. It feels as if you should have all the solutions to everything. And I think that's just not true. How do we move forward from that thinking? Is it a shift in mindset? Is it really just a belief in, look, I should be asking others? In fact, I should be modeling this behavior?
It's a shift in mindset, but it's also looking at the people you admire or people that you know, look up to or people whose careers you admire and looking at them and saying, are they really doing it alone? I think that's the thing we have this perception, especially in the age of nothing against social media, but, you know, we see people doing all these wonderful things, whether it's their career or, you know, on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever it is. You think, how do they do that? They're so magnificent. And automatically we think they're doing it all alone. A lot of people have teams, mentors, support, coaches, truly successful people. Most will say, I didn't do this all by myself. I didn't do this alone. Yet we take this on to think in order to prove it, prove myself or to prove that I can do something. In fact, collaboration is one of the highest requested skills when you look at on LinkedIn and among soft skills and things that organizations are looking for in leaders. So people want to know that you can collaborate. And support doesn't always mean, it certainly doesn't mean asking when you're weak, but even asking when you don't know. Sometimes you're bringing people in, you know your part, but you need someone else with a specialty in their part. And especially, so that's the thing I think we can do is reframe even what support looks like in leadership and be able to embrace it as a way to move forward, not something that makes you look weak. It actually makes you look like a better leader, that you know how to galvanize support around yourself and other initiatives in the organization.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, is it different, do you think, for, you know, somebody who's in a junior level position, Elayne, versus somebody who is, you know, C-suite or at the VP level?
Yes, I think in most cases, at least the folks that I've worked with, that C-suite, higher levels think at this point I should know, whether it's age or it's position. At this point, I should know. At this point, I should not have to ask. I think the difference is at that point, your questions might be different, but you still will have questions. You know, the support you need might be different, but you still need support. How you ask for it, how you go about it might be different, but you still need it. So it changes maybe the scope or the way that you obtain the support, but it doesn't change your need for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the other piece of it too is around executive coaching, right? Yes. I mean, I think for many leaders, particularly the higher you go, you're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with very complicated situations. Oftentimes it could be a transition from one position to the next. It could be dealing with a team that is brand new for you. There's so many different things that happen that I think having an executive coach, and not to, you know, sort of promote ourselves, although why not? It is the reality. But I do think that when you get to these higher level positions, these senior level positions, having a really strong executive coach by your side is something that I think shouldn't be questioned. I think everyone needs a trusted advisor.
Absolutely. And I think the benefit of executive coaches, therapists, people who are in those kinds of positions, is they can tell you, they can spot patterns, right? It's not just a friend that knows you, not to say don't talk to your friends or people like that, but they've talked to, you know, 1,000 other leaders like you, or however many other people like you, or people in situations. Of course, everyone's circumstance might be different, but we can recognize different patterns. And then in my case, I often like to tell people I work with, you are not alone. This is something that happens. Here's what I've seen in other cases. It just helps even broaden you as a leader perspective in that way. So if you're not, you know, I believe in peer support very much too, in addition to, as you said, executive coaching, but as a CEO or a VP, if you can talk to other VPs about their circumstances or how they dealt with some, that too lets you know that you're not alone, but also gives you some ideas of, oh, I didn't think about that. Because as they say, it's hard to read the label from inside the jar, right? When you're in the middle of everything, you're trying to someone from the outside who especially has, as you said, an executive coach, has perspective of, I've talked to many other leaders who have gone through this at different levels, at different companies. Here's what I know, and can share that insight from that perspective. There's no way it doesn't benefit you as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Now you've spent a decade building coaching IP through one-on-one work. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to understand, what was the moment that you decided we needed something available to us at 2 a.m., not just an appointment on the calendar? Because the IP you built is something that says, I can use this anytime, anywhere, when I need it.
Yes, thank you so much for asking about that. I'm very proud of it. One, because I built it with AI. I'm very much into leveraging AI, as I say, leverage AI, lead with presence. But this Elayne Fluker .coach is the app that I built. And honestly, it came to me because Right now, unfortunately, so many executives or people at all levels are being laid off or reorg or moved around and shuffled. There's a lot of uncertainty, especially in the United States in particular. Clients who, either were clients or who want to be clients and either can't afford it right now or not sure if they can invest right now. All the things, right, are happening for people. But because I'm so passionate about support, I wanted to be able to create something where people could continue to have access to. It still is based on all of my frameworks and coaching and things that I've done over the years to be able to have because of the AI, you can literally have a conversation with the bot, if you will, and it will give you information based on my materials and resources. So I wanted to make it accessible to people who are going through. I have clients who use it who are full-time clients with me, but they do want those moments where they can just ask a quick question or come up with an idea for something or strategize or prepare for an interview. You can do all of that through this app. So for me, it was really about making support as accessible as possible at every level.
It seems, though, that scaling your voice, into an app is very vulnerable for a coach. Right. I mean, because you're putting a lot of your beliefs and the way that, you would have a conversation with somebody. I think you're also, your whole value is in the relationship. What is it that convinced you that an AI version of you could actually still deliver that?
One of the things I make sure of is to tell the individual who has access to the app that this is not me, right? It's not never going to be like a human being, in other words. So,
Okay.
Sort of setting the expectations, if you will, right? But I do, as I said, it's all based on frameworks that I have, teachings that I've done, podcast episodes. I had over 800 plus podcast episodes. All of that material and all of those things are applied to this tool. So when it does respond, it responds in that way. And we've done, testing and things with it to make sure of it. Also, I will tell you too, I wanted to be able to trust that it wouldn't respond to certain things, or if someone said anything that looked like they maybe wanted to harm themselves or any other things that seem seriously from a medical standpoint, immediately refer and give resources that they can reach out to. So, as much as possible, doing things that lead the individual in the right direction with letting them know that it still is, a machine that you're communicating with, but it's based on these materials that you would have access to in the coaching relationship.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. What would we use it for? I mean, can you give us an example? I mean, if I'm a woman, working on my day-to-day career and I've got, all kinds of, maybe I'm trying to figure out ways to save time. Maybe I'm getting ready to have a difficult conversation with an employee. Maybe I want to sort of think about some ideas around strategizing for, a 90-day plan. But what are the things that, give me a real example of what somebody would use the AI coach for?
All of those examples are exactly the kinds of things that are in there. So one, for example, is if you are laid off from your position or if you are about to have a difficult conversation, it will give you feedback, asking you some questions. One of the things I learned from my business coach is first feel, second solve. So a lot of us skip over the feelings of what's happening and go right to solutions. So I designed my app in particular to talk to you first about what are you feeling, how's, what's going on, let's talk about this, and then let's go into the solutions. So I'm going to read from one of the examples here. So I wrote, as example, I just got laid off. What do I do? The response from the app in this case was, I'm sorry to hear that. Before we get into any kind of plan, I want you to take a breath for a second. What are you feeling right now? Which is very much my voice, right? Whether it's shock, anger, fear, etc. You're not overreacting. You're not weak. You're a human being navigating real change. Here's what I want you to hold on to. And then it gives some things, pause and ground yourself, clarify your numbers, trust your circle, talking about how to get support. And then one of the things I did is, if it was a response, I'm angry that they sent us notice in an email. The response, of course you're angry. That is a completely reasonable response. So it really is a conversation that you have with this, that makes you feel like, how do you honor your feelings? And then let's come up with a strategy. Here are some things you can do. All based on conversations that I've literally had with clients, not specific to clients, obviously, confidentially, but as I said, these are patterns. These are things that we see happen. So same with difficult conversation. I have a course on LinkedIn about how to have difficult conversations, right? So that comes from that content resources, things that I've already provided. So that's the way that it works, as dynamically as that.
It's almost as if you have like a partner, if you will. And is it such, Elayne, that the more that I start using it, I imagine just like with Claude or with ChatGPT, the more you start using it, the more it starts to understand kind of your personality, kind of the way that, you shape your thoughts, so that if I'm talking about, hey, I lost my job and, here's how I feel, and give me some ideas on next steps, then 3 months later, I might come back and say, hey, guess what? I've got a new role as, VP of marketing for XYZ company. What should I do in my first 30 to 60 days?
Yes.
Right? I mean, does it connect things?
It continues that conversation based on your input to the absolutely, which is what we need, right? Because things change. Yeah. Things change, things happen, they go this way, they go that way. And we sometimes need that immediate, just a quick check-in. I always say it's like you said, a partner, I say coach in your pocket kind of thing. Yeah. Just quick check-in. And, or you might all of a sudden be asked to present in a meeting and you want to go over some notes. One of the things I talk about often is what's the top 3 things you want to make sure to say. If you can only get to 2, what are those 2? If you only get to 1. So some is very practical skills and things, but it's just, or practical ideas. But in the moment, if I can't think about what this is, this helps me sort of get grounded in, okay, what's my strategy going forward? Or a performance review, or, going in and asking for a promotion. Any of those things are part of it.
I think it's a groundbreaking tool. So congratulations on creating it. What's the feedback you're getting from clients who are already using the app?
The feedback has been, as a little bit of a nerd, when you create something or build something, if you will, it's been wonderful to see people tell me the ways that they've used it and when they've used it. Some of the surprises have been about to go into a conversation with the boss and have not a difficult conversation, but sharing something that was not working for this particular individual who used the app. And they felt like they were more prepared going in to have that conversation. Someone else talked about the confidence builder part of it, how it helped to build confidence because they were able to sort of almost like practice real time. Whereas, you don't have to call me and make an appointment and go through the schedule and all these things. You can do it in real time. So the practical ways that people are using it, and the kind of real time moments, like right before this or right before that or right after this happened, I found are the ways that people are using it the most.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's in combination, right? I mean, you don't just use the tool, but you use it in combination of having real conversations, right? I mean, you use it as a supplement, right? I mean, and it's something else that you can think about that maybe you haven't thought about in terms of advice or a suggestion or a professional tip. I wonder, women who are in corporate today, particularly my clients, are saying, look, the pace of change is crazy. I'm overwhelmed. I've got a lot going on. So often I don't have time for one-on-ones anymore. The environment is extraordinarily demanding, but yet I still want to be my best self. What do you advise when women in particular come to you and they say, look, I don't know what else to do. I'm exhausted. I am at my wit's end, but I still have to be performing. What do you tell them?
I would say this might sound counterintuitive, but I talk about how can you step back for a second? How can you, because sometimes we're so busy juggling, trying to carry it all, do it all, move forward. And sometimes you just need a minute to say what's going to ground you right now. So I will tell you a couple of things that might not sound, again, it might be counterintuitive. I had one client, for example, she was working so hard that her team was worried about her health. She wasn't a bad leader, a bad boss, whatever, but she was such a driver, very accomplished. They saw how she worked. All of her feedback and all the 360s and all those things was about how much they were literally worried about her because she was pushing so hard. And of course, she was feeling overwhelmed and stressed and those kind of things. What we ended up figuring out, Denise, I said, what is something you do that's purely for joy? Pure joy, nothing's tied to it, no numbers, no, achievements. And it was playing pickleball with her daughter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I said, let's make a plan that every week, at least once a week, you have to play pickleball with your daughter. Let's just try. What can it harm? It can help you build a good relationship with your daughter. It can help you by the end of I think we were together 6 months. I think it was 6 months. By the end of that time, she was like a different person. Now, still herself, still her strong, but she talked about too what it did, that one commitment, what it did for her with her relationship with her daughter, and then how it made her feel better at work, because even if she was driving to work, she knew she had something else that was just for her, that let her have fun, and that she was taking the initiative to carve out something for herself. Another person that I talked to was having a lot of stress and anxiety at work, and things were changing, and she was feeling sort of out of control. I suggested that she go to a rage room. Have you heard of those? A rage room?
I think I have, but tell us
You
about
go
it.
in and you just break up things. They give you, like a protective equipment and all this stuff, and you go in with a bat or a sledgehammer or whatever. It sounds crazy, but I've always wanted to do. I've never done it. I've recommended it so many
Sounds
times.
a little violent. I don't know.
It is violent. It's violent, but it's against, things that you can break up and those kind of. Better to do it that way. Than there are a lot of ways violence, of course, is manifesting another.
Right.
But the thing is, the rage is there, or the anger, whatever, emotion you want to talk about, because you feel out of control, or things feel uncertain, or your colleagues are getting moved around. And it's just, so people have that stress, anxiety, and things in them. The danger of that, I talk about this in the book too, is that those things affect our health. Right? I know for me, it gives me migraines. For other people, it gives them pains in their lower back or anxiety, all these, and it starts to affect your relationship. That needs to come out somehow. Whether if it's not a rage room, which I, think is fascinating, you can go to the gym and even just punching but it has to be some sort of exertion, walk and all these other things are great, meditative. I'm like, how do you get this out? How do you acknowledge and really release this? So those are some of the things that I've advised. What's really going on? Yeah, as opposed to just, how do we solve this problem? Sometimes, most times, as you know, it's something else underneath going on that, I'm not a therapist, but still, let's acknowledge what you're feeling and get through that. And then we can think with a clear head. Because people who usually know the solution or have an idea for what they're going to try, leaders that, the level we coach, they can come up with a strategy and those things. It's all the other stuff that's making them, whether it's people management or these other things that are stressing them out usually.
Yeah. It's kind of the thought process around it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
I always, when I'm working with clients that are at that point, what I often invite them to do is to really schedule reflection time.
Yes.
And it's hard. And so I often say, just start with 30 minutes. Like, it's a non-negotiable that every morning I've got 30 minutes to myself. Non-negotiable. And it's difficult because sometimes that empty time gets filled with something else. And that's why I remind them it has to be a non-negotiable, whether it's from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m., whether it's whatever the time is that you choose, but that you take 30 minutes to breathe, to relax, to just kind of settle yourself. I think many executives today get up in the morning, and once they've done what they needed to do, they get right into email. They get right into their we basically sleep with our cell phones. And I think part of it is trying to put something in between that as a buffer. And again, making it a non-negotiable so that you allow yourself some time to be yourself.
Yes, I love that. Allow yourself some time to be yourself. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit, Elayne. I know there's so much, but I do want to talk about your book, which I love. I have it right here. Get over, I got it. I love it. But in the book, you write, in addition to giving ourselves permission to unlearn the behaviors, habits, and beliefs that no longer serve us, and to choose to be receptive to support, we also have to give ourselves permission to not know all the answers. And I do think that is in alignment with what you and I are talking about. But can you expand a little bit on what you meant by that?
One of the things I learned from this woman, Patricia Moreno, who, God bless her, she's passed away, but I interviewed her on the podcast in 2016, 10 years ago also. And Patricia talked about this idea of not being afraid to live the question. So this idea that, again, as leaders, as people who usually do have the answers, as moms always say, everyone asks you, where's my sock? Where's my this? Where's my that? And I have friends who are like, ask your dad, ask someone, look for it, but you have the answers, right? You're the person. So we are usually the ones that have the answers or seek the answers. She talked about the importance of being able to live the question. So what is that? The idea of repositioning the not knowing as allowing yourself to be in a state of curiosity, or allowing yourself to be able to say, I'm not sure, I'm figuring this out though, I'm living this question, right? So creating space for the answer to come to you, and not diminishing yourself, belittling yourself, or saying that you're doing something wrong because you don't have all the answers. So unlearning this behavior of not asking for support, but also being, I don't know the answer, I'm not sure. I have a client I talked to, and we were talking about a transition for her and next step, and she actually talked about how it was the people around her, not even herself, the people around her who had her feeling the pressure to make a decision on what was next, right? She's high level, and she's always the one in her group, because I asked about that. Are you the one in your group that usually has the answers, or that usually has things together? Because sometimes people are responding based on their own insecurity or fear. It's like, but you're the one who has it together. You can't fall apart, because then we'll all fall apart. She said, actually, I am the one that usually. So they asked, hey, well, how's it going? What are you going to do next? Do you know? And she felt like she always had to have an answer. So my challenge is, let's try just saying, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm living that question right now. I'll let you know when I find out. Full stop. Right? You don't always have to fill that space and that blank. Now, the answer does eventually come. Especially when you open yourself up. I actually feel like you get better answers, or in my experience, I've gotten better answers when I try to just be open to what they might be, as opposed to, no, this is it, or I have to figure this out, or usually things. We have deadlines, but most of the big decisions aren't necessarily on a deadline. We can give it some space to do the things. And then you put structure around it, and then you do all the other things that you normally do. So yeah, that's what I was talking about, or referring to there, this idea of being open and live the question.
I mean, because frankly, what's wrong with just saying, I don't know?
I don't know.
I mean, what's wrong with that? Like
nothing.
Does it diminish us? Does it make us seem as if we don't know anything? What's wrong with simply saying, I don't have the answer for that right now, let me look into it and get back to you? Like I find that to be such a challenge for people to say, I don't know. It's almost as if saying that has a different meaning, to it, versus just being okay with not having the answer and letting someone know, I'll get back to you and let you know when I do know.
Yes, or I don't know. What do you think?
That too.
That too. No, you're so right. And I think that's the thing. What is it to the individual thinking this? What do you believe it says about you when you say, I don't know? Again, like what's coming up for you when you say, what is it? Well, they might think, then it comes out what the actual hang up is. It's not the phrase. It's what do you think it says about you when you say, I don't know?
Yeah. I think, Elayne, that's also why it's so difficult for many of us to have boundaries, right? Because we always want to say yes to everything. We want to be liked, particularly women. We want to make sure that people respect us and they like us and they see us as approachable and they see us as responsible and responsive. And we don't want to say no to anything. And when you start adapting that mindset of, I got to say yes to everything, that means that some of the main things that need to be getting done are likely not getting done the way you want them to. Because if you're saying yes to everything, then there are things that subconsciously you're saying no to that maybe are really important.
Yep. And I was going to say the same exact thing. You're even if you think you're saying yes to everything, you are saying no to some things, and it could be the things that matter to you, which is important to, as I mentioned with the client with pickleball, like take inventory. What's really going on here? What really matters to you? What would make, another phrase I often use, what would this look like if it were easy? If you could break everything down and really look at whatever you're trying to accomplish, to deliver, what would this look like if it were easy? And then people can sort of scale it back. Well, if it were easy, I would do this, or this is what the outcome would be, or this is what, just how do we bring it? You hear me talk a lot about how do we get grounded again and start from there and build up. So that's
a great one. And I remember that now that you say that. What would it look like if it were easy? Absolutely. Yeah. But again, that takes time to kind of sit down and, reflect. And I think reflection, to be honest with you, is one of the most underutilized tools that we can have as professionals.
Yes, I think, and to your point, I think the questions, things that I'm posing are things you could consider in that reflection time, because it's hard to do that in the midst of the chaos, as we mentioned, even like I said, using the app. It's just, if you had time to just if you set time, I should say, not if you have time, because people say, I don't have time. But you have to set time. You have to be intentional about it. You can make, if you wake up at 7, you need an extra half hour, then let's get up at 6:30. You can make the time there. But creating that space, as you said, for the reflection and then asking yourself some of these questions.
Yeah. I feel like you have two big themes. The first one is stop doing it alone. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is learn to use AI as a thinking partner. Mm-hmm. Are they actually the same idea? Because it seems like AI is a new form of support, but I don't know, is that too neat?
No, I do. AI, I believe, in my opinion, is a new form of support. It's a tool. I think, there's a lot of conversation, of course, around it now. It's replacing people. It's doing all of these things. I think the best leaders, the most senior leaders, the most experienced individuals, AI for you is jet fuel, if you leverage it in the right way, right? Okay. So the things that you're probably already doing, accomplishing, et cetera, you can use it as either a strategy thinking partner, but it doesn't replace your thinking. And I think that's what some senior leaders or experienced individuals even, or a certain age or position, this is going to come in and replace me. But actually you are better positioned to leverage AI because you know when it's wrong. You know when it's off base. You know when it doesn't have, it only has what you give it as far as context. So you know the context of your team and the balance of the organization, or if it tells you to make, Sarah the next such and such, but Sarah's pregnant right now. She's going to be out for 6 months. So what you need to give her is this, and you need to move that, just the realities of life and things that are going on. Not that we would discriminate against Sarah because she's pregnant, but I'm just saying knowledge and information of who needs to do what and all of those things, or someone's getting married, or someone doesn't really want this position, or you have more context, and you also know, oh, this doesn't work because our CFO actually approves that. Just you have more insight and context and lived human experience that you can either, like I said, tell the AI or know when the AI is wrong, redirect, push back. But people think this thing has come along, it's, has this high level of human intelligence, it's going to tell me what to do or replace me. And I will tell you, Denise, even, as someone who very much watches this industry, you can even see now, of course, 6 months ago, go AI, go, all these companies were letting go of people and AI is going to replace everything. Now they're hiring people back and they're seeing that AI, again, because it only knows what you give it, what you put in there, even if it's a collective human intelligence. My situation at my company and the goals that we are trying to accomplish, I believe, need a human to facilitate that. In fact, one of the things I talk about a lot is this idea of human nurture for companies that are looking to, bring in AI adoption, which also isn't working as well as organizations thought. They're bringing in people to do these trainings and things, but their individuals in their organization aren't adopting the AI the way they thought. In fact, the number is 82% of organizations provide AI training, but over 59% still notice a skill gap. That's according to DataCamp, a recent survey. So what is the gap in between? And I believe the gap isn't more tools, more training. The tools are out there. The trainings are great. There's a new tool probably since we've been on this call, 5 new tools have come out. I believe it's human nurture, going back to what we talked about, the executive coaching, the leadership development. Why are your leaders resistant to this? There's always a reason, right? Do they not feel supported? Did you change a mandate where people feel like, well, if I don't do AI, I'm going to lose my job? Well, that affects the way people work, so really getting into the human behind the screen, if you will. But I know I was going down a deep end on that, but those are my thoughts about AI in general, and when I encourage leaders to use it, I'm like, this is something you leverage. It doesn't take over for you. It's something you can leverage from strategy standpoint, and even from I have it do a morning briefing for me. Goes through my email and highlights top emails and tells me what things are on my calendar and what the priority, so even just from an organization standpoint, again, what would this look like if it were easy? So
how can my listeners, how can we learn more about how to use AI to our benefit? I mean, I know there's some free courses available on Google and, Anthropic, but what do you suggest so that we can actually use it the way that you're using it? I mean, I love the idea of having like a morning briefing. I mean, how do we get the most benefit from that?
Yes, so selfishly, I would tell you if you go to ElayneFluker.ai, I have some content and things there for you to see. We can do, if anyone wants to do even just a strategy call to talk about your particular circumstance or business and how you can set up AI in there. The ways that I will tell you I've learned on my own, I attend workshop virtually, but workshops, seminars, anything that's an AI training on particular topics, that's more of a learning how to leverage AI and tools like that. So that might not, be for everyone. But if you know a specific need that you have, say you want to find out how do I use a morning briefing, create a morning briefing for myself. So AI, ask the AI. That's the thing people forget. You can go to Claude and literally type in, I want to set up a morning briefing. Tell me all the steps on how to do that and what I need to do so that I receive a briefing from you every morning at 9 a.m. And it'll walk you through all the steps. So that's another thing I try to tell people to take the fear away from using it. We think we have to come to this thing knowing how to use it. This isn't something that, there are instructions and trainings and all those things, of course, but a lot of the answers you can get from asking the AI.
Yeah.
This is the thing I want to do. This is the, what I need to create. Even telling it the problem. My schedule is very hectic. I'm managing a lot. I feel like I'm missing, important things on my calendar. Is there a way for me to set up every morning that you highlight the top 3 things I need to make sure I do each day? And it'll tell you, it's called setting up a skill, but it'll literally walk you through how to do it. And this isn't, you don't have to be technical. You literally just, you or your assistant, because we always like getting support, right? Anyone, whoever's on your team, or you just set it up. And the thing with those kinds of things, you set it up once and then you don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
So that's some of the practical ways to do, but a lot of the how to is ask the AI.
Yeah, I love that. I think honestly, you can just start playing with it. That's how I learned to use it, and I use Claude. Claude is my buddy. I'm like, hi Claude, I'm back again, right? Exactly. I would probably use it 3, 4, 5 times a day. And I just started playing around with it, and that's how I really got good at asking for what I needed and kind of honing it. But one of the things that I come back to again and again, particularly with my clients, is that growth often doesn't happen in the big moments. It really happens in the smaller moments, the intentional practices, some of which we've talked about today. And so I'm wondering, because this really is about moving forward in our career, it's about, moving forward in the transitions that we have. What is a really good prompt if you could share something for any of our listeners today that you would have us use if we're thinking about next steps in our career?
Yes, fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I have a prompt here that I would love to share with you all, and this will be something that I'll give to Denise so it can be in the show notes for the podcast. So you'll be able to go to the document, copy and paste this, and give it a try. So this is sort of the grounding for it. So listen to this prompt. You would put straight into the AI. You are a candid executive coach who has advised senior leaders for 20 years. I am put in your title at a whatever industry or company. I have been strong in my role, but my career has stalled and I am not certain why. Before you say anything, ask me 5 questions, one at a time, and wait for my answer each time. So I will tell you all, quick sidebar, that's one of the skills or techniques that I always talk about. Ask the AI to ask you questions. You give then I always say at the end of any request that I make, ask me any clarifying questions to make sure we do this task to the best of our ability, or we optimize this plan. So you can say, and it'll come back and ask you questions like, what about this? What's the context for this? Okay, back to the prompt. Before you say anything, ask me 5 questions, one at a time, and wait for an answer each time. Ask how other people describe me, what I have been passed over for, who advocates for me when I am not in the room, how my last 2 performance conversations went, and what I have been avoiding. Then name my real speed bump, not the polite version. Give me the one pattern that is holding me back, the evidence you are basing it on, and what it's costing me right now. Close with the hardest thing I need to change and the one thing I should stop doing this week. So that's a way to sort of set the, conversation.
I love that. Okay. And I will definitely make sure that that's in the show notes. Absolutely. So that people can use that as their test prompt and just see what you get back.
See what you get back and respond honestly, and don't feel like you have to, there is no right or wrong here. And if the AI says something wrong, off track or that's not in the context of it's just guessing based on what you've given it, you can say, actually, I always say, actually, to clarify, this is the situation, or actually to clarify, I'm not this, and then it can rework it. So it's really about having, as we talked about in the beginning, having that conversation with it and telling it what you need. So I will definitely share this with you so you can, was that a good one?
Oh, that was an excellent one. That was, it's spot on. And again, it'll be in the show notes so that everybody can take advantage of it. Elayne, thank you for this. What strikes me most about this conversation is that even with everything you've built, the app, the AI tool, the hundreds of people who you've trained through LinkedIn Learning, through your coaching, it feels like you keep coming back to the same idea. None of us are meant to do this alone. That's true with support, and it's true with AI too. It's not a replacement for relationships or the guidance that we need to move us forward. It's really just another way to access them now, later, or 2 a.m. or in the boardroom. So thank you so much for that, Elayne. This has been phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. To everyone listening, if today's conversation hit home, go check out Elayne's book, Get Over I Got It, and get into the AI Ready Leader. And don't forget the prompt that Elayne shared with us today. Again, you'll find it in the show notes. Elayne, thank you again for being here and for having me on your show all those years ago. It's been a joy to come full circle with you. That's it for today's episode of Promoted with Denise Harris. Until next time, keep showing up, keep asking for support, and keep getting promoted.